Welcome to the Echoes of Ihsan podcast, where we really kind of dig into the heart of Islamic texts and traditions.
Yeah.
And today we are embarking on a deep dive into the Sunan Abu Dawud Hadith, Book 4, The Rites of Hajj.
Okay.
It's a journey that many aspire to undertake.
Mm-hmm.
And I think understanding its significance through the lens of these hadiths can offer,
Mm-hmm.
a really profound appreciation for this pillar of Islam.
Absolutely.
Now, you're interested in understanding the specific rituals and their significance
All
and
right. Yeah.
how they connect to broader Islamic principles. And I've got just the right person to guide us through this exploration.
Awesome.
Joining us today is an expert in Islamic traditions and practices who can shed light on the nuances and wisdom embedded within these hadiths, ready to embark on this journey with us.
Absolutely. I'm excited to delve into these hadiths with you and kind of uncover those layers of meaning that are there.
Excellent. So the first thing that jumped out at me was this idea of Hajj being a once-in-a-lifetime obligation.
Mm.
It's clearly stated in Hadith 1717. There's no ambiguity there. If you're physically and financially able, you have to perform Hajj
Right.
once in your life. But then there's this interesting addition. Any extra pilgrimages you do are considered supererogatory acts.
Right.
So it's not just about checking off a box.
Yeah.
It's about this deep spiritual yearning that might draw someone back to this sacred journey.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that? Is it about going above and beyond in devotion? Or is there a deeper message there?
Yeah. You've hit on a really important point. The concept of supererogatory actions in Islam is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that there's always room to go above and beyond the basic requirements of the faith. And striving for excellence in our devotion to Allah and acknowledging that our spiritual journey doesn't end with fulfilling those basic obligations.
All right.
And in the case of Hajj, this repeated yearning to return could stem from the transformative power of the experience itself. You're witnessing millions of Muslims from all walks of life converging on this one sacred space, united in their devotion.
Right.
It can leave an indelible mark on your soul and a longing to reconnect with that spiritual energy.
Yeah, that resonates with me. It's not just a physical journey. It's an internal one. Transformation that continues long after you've returned home.
Exactly. And this emphasis on the significance of Hajj is further underscored in Hadith 1725,
Okay.
where the Prophet explicitly states that Islam doesn't allow for neglecting this obligation if you have the means. So there are no excuses if you're able-bodied and you have the financial resources you're expected to answer that call.
Yeah, it's a powerful statement about the universality of Hajj, transcending social and economic barriers. Everyone stands equal before Allah during this pilgrimage.
Precisely. It's a reminder that in the eyes of Allah, our worldly distinctions fade away.
Yeah.
What matters is our piety and our sincere devotion.
Now, this next hadith I found particularly intriguing. After the farewell pilgrimage, the Prophet advises his wives to stay home. It's Hadith 1718, and it seems to shift the focus from repeatedly performing Hajj to something else entirely.
Right.
It's as if he's saying, you've experienced this incredible spiritual journey. Now go out and embody those lessons in your everyday lives. Could this be a subtle encouragement to focus on spiritual growth and service within one's own community?
That's a very insightful observation. You're picking up on a subtle yet profound message here.
Yeah.
The Prophet isn't discouraging additional pilgrimages, but he's highlighting the importance of integrating those lessons of Hajj into our daily lives.
Right.
It's about taking that heightened spiritual awareness and translating it into actions that benefit our families, our communities, and the wider world.
Yeah.
It's recognizing that our spiritual journey doesn't end at the Kaaba, but it continues in the way we interact with others, the way we conduct our affairs, and the way we contribute to society.
It makes you think about the true purpose of Hajj. It's not just about the rituals themselves. It's about the lasting impact that they have on our character and our actions.
Exactly. It's about internalizing those values of submission, humility, and unity, and letting them guide every step we take.
Okay, now, we're getting into some really interesting territory. These next few hadiths deal with the issue of trade during Hajj.
Okay.
We have hadiths 1727, 1728, 1729, and 1730, all addressing this seemingly contradictory practice. You're in the sacred state of Ihram, focus on spiritual matters. And yet you're allowed to engage in worldly activities like buying and selling.
Right.
Doesn't that seem a bit odd?
It's a question many people have grappled with. But these hadiths make it clear that Islam recognizes the reality of human needs.
Yeah.
We're not expected to completely detach from worldly affairs, even during this sacred journey.
Right.
There's a balance to be struck between our spiritual obligations and our practical needs.
I was particularly drawn to the story of Abu Umama at Taimi in Hadith 1729.
Okay.
He was genuinely concerned that his Hajj wouldn't be valid because he had hired out riding animals for a prophet. He even goes to Ibn Umar, a renowned scholar and companion of the prophet, to get clarification.
Right.
And what's fascinating is that Ibn Umar doesn't dismiss his concern outright. He acknowledges the potential conflict, but reassures Abu Umama that his Hajj is perfectly acceptable.
Okay.
What do you think this tells us about the nature of Islamic rulings?
It's a beautiful example of how Islamic law is applied with wisdom and understanding.
Yeah.
Ibn Umar doesn't just quote a rule.
Right.
He takes into account the specific circumstances
Yeah.
and the intention behind the action. He points out that Abu Umama still fulfilled all the essential rites of Hajj.
Right.
Putting on ihram, calling the talbiyah, circumambulating the Kaaba, returning from Arafat, and lapidating the Jamarat. The act of trade didn't negate his devotion or invalidate his pilgrimage.
It's a reminder that the spirit of the law is just as important as the letter of the law.
Precisely. And this idea is further reinforced in Hadith 1730, where the Prophet himself is asked about trading during Hajj. And what's remarkable is that he doesn't answer right away. He waits for divine revelation.
Oh, wow.
And then this verse is revealed. It is no sin for you that you seek the bounty of your Lord. It's a powerful confirmation that engaging in trade during Hajj isn't inherently wrong,
Right.
as long as it doesn't distract from the primary purpose of the pilgrimage.
It's almost like having a direct line to divine wisdom,
Yeah.
a clear and unambiguous answer to a real-life question.
It highlights the practicality and relevance of the Quran and the Sunnah,
Yeah.
offering guidance for how we can navigate the complexities of life while remaining grounded in our faith.
Okay, speaking of practicality, let's talk about these next few hadiths, 1735, 1736, and 1737.
Okay.
They introduce the concept of miqat, the designated locations for entering the state of Ihram.
Right.
Seems like the Prophet was quite the organizer,
Yeah.
meticulously appointing specific locations for people coming from different regions.
Yeah.
Why this emphasis on specific locations? What's the significance of that?
It speaks to the Prophet's attention to detail and his understanding of human psychology.
Okay.
Imagine the logistical chaos if everyone just decided to enter the state of Ihram whenever and wherever they felt like it.
Yeah.
By establishing these designated locations, the Prophet brought order and efficiency to the pilgrimage.
Right.
It also created a sense of anticipation and heightened spiritual awareness. As you approach the miqat, you're leaving behind those worldly concerns and stepping into a sacred space.
Yeah, it's like a symbolic transition,
Yeah.
a shedding of the old self and a preparation for the spiritual journey ahead.
Exactly. And there's also a spiritual dimension to these designated locations.
Yeah.
Hadith 1737 mentions a remarkable reward.
Okay.
For those who put on ihram from the Aqsa Mosque to the sacred mosque, the forgiveness of past and future sins.
Wow.
It's an incredible incentive highlighting the transformative power of the journey itself.
It's not just about reaching the destination. It's about the intention and dedication embodied in every step taken towards the house of Allah.
Yes, and what's particularly striking is how these hadiths demonstrate Islam's consideration for women's biological realities.
Okay.
Hadith 1740, for instance, explains the rulings for menstruating women and those who've recently given birth.
Right.
They're not excluded from Hajj. They can still perform most of the rites except for the circumambulation of the Kaaba. So they're not completely barred from participating.
It's a testament to the inclusivity of Islamic worship,
Yeah.
ensuring that women can participate fully,
Yes.
even during times when they might feel restricted from other acts of devotion.
Exactly. It's a beautiful example of how Islamic law balances spiritual obligations with the practical needs and limitations of individuals.
Now let's talk about sacrifice. It's a concept that's loaded with symbolism, and it's deeply intertwined with the story of Prophet Ibrahim.
Right.
We're not talking about just a random act of slaughter here.
Yeah.
We're connecting back to this profound narrative of submission to God's will. Ibrahim was willing to sacrifice his son Ishmael out of obedience to Allah. And at the last moment, Allah provided a ram in his place.
Yes.
So how does this story connect to the practice of sacrifice during Hajj?
The sacrifice during Hajj is a symbolic reenactment of Ibrahim's submission.
Okay.
It signifies our willingness to let go of what is precious to us to surrender to Allah's will.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that ultimately everything belongs to Allah and we are merely stewards of his blessings.
Yeah.
And it's not just about personal piety, it's also about sharing those blessings with others. The meat from the sacrificed animals is distributed among the poor and needy.
Right.
So everyone partakes in the blessings of this sacred act.
There's a beautiful social dimension to it.
Yeah.
A reminder of our interconnectedness and our responsibility to care for those less fortunate.
Absolutely. And this concept of sharing is deeply embedded within Islamic teachings.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing that our wealth and possessions are not meant to be hoarded, but to be used for the benefit of others.
Now, I came across this fascinating story in Hadith 1745. It describes how the Prophet included a camel that belonged to Abu Jahl among his sacrificial animals.
Okay.
Abu Jahl was, a staunch opponent of Islam,
Right.
a figure who represented resistance and hostility towards the new faith.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think was the significance of this particular act?
It's a powerful symbolic gesture. By sacrificing Abu Jahl's camel, the Prophet was making a statement about the triumph of Islam over its adversaries.
Okay.
It was also a symbolic rejection of the values and practices that Abu Jahl represented,
Mm-hmm.
a purification of the community from the remnants of ignorance and disbelief.
It makes you think about the concept of forgiveness.
Hmm.
Even a figure like Abu Jahl, who vehemently opposed the Prophet,
Right.
wasn't excluded from this act of ritual purification.
That's a profound observation. It speaks to the expansive nature of Allah's mercy,
Yeah.
which can encompass even those who seem to have placed themselves outside its bounds.
And speaking of mercy, these hadiths about sacrifice are also filled with examples of the Prophet's generosity.
Right.
In Hadith 1746 and 1747, we see him sacrificing on behalf of his wives, demonstrating his love and care for his family.
Yeah.
And in Hadith 1752, Umar ibn al-Khattab is advised not to sell his sacrificial camel even for a profit,
Right.
emphasizing the importance of fulfilling one's intention.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful reminder that true piety isn't about outward show or material gain, but about the sincerity of our actions and the purity of our intentions.
Exactly. And this emphasis on sincerity is further illustrated in Hadith 1758,
Okay.
where the Prophet instructs the slaughter and distribution of fatigued sacrificial animals. So it's about ensuring that the act of sacrifice is carried out with compassion,
Right.
and that the meat reaches those who need it most.
There's a deep sense of social consciousness woven into these rituals.
Yeah.
A recognition that our acts of worship should benefit not just ourselves, but the wider community.
Yes, and the social dimension of faith is a recurring theme throughout the Quran and the Sunnah. It's a reminder that our individual piety is intertwined with our responsibility towards others.
Now let's move on to the Talbiyah.
Yeah.
This is the declaration made upon entering Ihram.
Okay.
And it's one of the most powerful and evocative aspects of Hajj. It's a constant reminder of our purpose and our submission to Allah.
Right.
But here's where things get a bit interesting. We have Hadiths 1766, 1768, 1770, and 1771 describing differing opinions about the timing of the Talbiyah.
Okay.
Some say you start right after prayer, others when your camel stands up,
Right.
still others when you reach a certain point on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
It seems a little confusing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do we reconcile these different opinions?
What's remarkable here is the tolerance and flexibility within Islamic practice.
Yeah.
The Prophet didn't mandate a rigid one-size-fits-all approach to the Talbiyah.
Okay.
He allowed for variations in practice as long as the core principles were upheld.
It suggests an openness to personal expression within the framework of ritual.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that faith is a deeply personal experience, and that individual expressions of devotion can enrich the collective practice. And this openness extends beyond just the timing of the Talbiyah. Hadith 1809 mentions that people would add extra words
really?
to the Talbiyah, personalizing their declarations. And the Prophet didn't object to this practice.
So it's not about rigidly adhering to a specific formula, but about the sincerity of the heart and the intention behind the words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And amidst this individual expression, we also see the power of collective worship coming into play.
Okay.
Hadith 1810 describes a scene where Angel Gabriel instructs the Prophet to command his companions to raise their voices during the Talbiyah.
Wow.
Suddenly it becomes this powerful chorus of voices echoing through the valley, a testament to the strength and unity of the Muslim community.
That must have been an incredible experience to witness such a display of collective devotion.
Yes, the power of collective worship is immense. It creates a sense of shared purpose, amplifying the individual intentions and forging a spiritual bond between believers.
And this connection between declaration and action is beautifully illustrated in Hadith 1813, where the instruction is to continue the talbiyah until touching the black stone.
Right.
So you're not just saying the words.
Yeah.
You're carrying that intention and devotion with you every step of the way towards the Kaaba.
It highlights the seamlessness of faith and action in Islam. The outward expression of faith is seen as a manifestation of that inner transformation.
Okay, now let's briefly touch on the sequence of rituals involved in Hajj.
Okay.
Hadith 1788 describes the Prophet performing tawaf, circumambulating the Kaaba.
Right.
Sa'i running between Safa and Marwa, and Rami stoning the Jamarat. It's like a carefully choreographed dance, each movement imbued with symbolic meaning.
Yeah.
But what are the deeper messages behind these actions?
It's important to approach these rituals with understanding. They're not just physical actions. They are symbolic representations of deeper spiritual concepts. For instance, the tawaf around the Kaaba symbolizes our unity and our constant striving to be close to Allah.
Right.
We circle around the sacred house just as the planets revolve around the sun, a constant reminder of our dependence on Allah.
And the running between Safa and Marwa, connects back to the story of Hajar, the wife of Prophet Ibrahim.
Right.
She was desperately searching for water for her infant son, Ismail. And she ran between these two hills 7 times before Allah miraculously provided a spring of water for them.
Yes.
It's a powerful story about faith, perseverance, and the boundless mercy of Allah.
Yes. It's a reminder that even in moments of despair, we should never lose hope in Allah's mercy.
Right.
And the act of running between these hills is a symbolic reenactment of Hajar's struggle, a testament to her unwavering faith.
And then there's the stoning of the Jamarat. It's a powerful act of defiance against temptation and evil, a symbolic rejection of anything that might lead us astray from the path towards Allah.
Each ritual holds a story, a lesson, a connection to our shared history. Understanding these nuances enriches our appreciation for the beauty and wisdom embedded within the rites of Hajj.
Now, being in the state of Ihram also comes with certain prohibitions. You can't cut your hair, use perfume hunt, engage in marital relations. It's all about stripping away worldly attachments and focusing on spiritual purification. So what's the rationale behind these prohibitions? What's the deeper message here?
It's about cultivating a state of humility and detachment from worldly desires.
Okay.
By abstaining from these actions, we shift our focus inward, recognizing our dependence on Allah and the temporary nature of material possessions.
It's a symbolic shedding of our ego and our attachment to worldly comforts.
Exactly. And amidst these prohibitions, there are some fascinating exceptions that highlight the practicality and compassion of Islamic teachings.
Okay.
Hadith 1829, for instance, mentions that women could cover their faces when riders passed by, acknowledging the need for modesty and safety.
Right.
And then there are Hadiths 1832 and 1833, where the Prophet himself undergoes cupping for pain relief, demonstrating that seeking medical treatment is permissible even in the state of Ihram.
So it's not about imposing unnecessary hardship.
Right.
It's about recognizing our human needs and limitations.
Absolutely. The Sharia is meant to guide us towards a life of balance, recognizing our humanity and encouraging us to seek Allah's pleasure in all aspects of our lives.
And I came across this amusing anecdote in Hadith 1814. It describes Abu Bakr disciplining his slave while in Ihram.
Okay.
And the Prophet is observing this scene, smiling, and even commenting on it. You know, it's a reminder that even amidst this sacred journey, there's room for humor and everyday interactions.
It humanizes the Prophet and his companions, reminding us that faith isn't about being serious all the time. It's about integrating spirituality into the fabric of our lives.
Now, in addition to prohibitions, there were also specific permissions granted during Ihram. Hadith 1844 outlines the creatures that a pilgrim is allowed to kill in self-defense. Snakes, scorpions, rats, biting dogs.
Right.
It's about maintaining a balance between self-preservation and respect for life.
It highlights the ethical framework that underpins Islamic teachings. Even in situations where self-defense is necessary, there are limitations and guidelines that emphasize the sanctity of life.
And this principle extends to hunting as well. Hadith 1845 makes it clear that you can't hunt or consume hunted game while in Ihram. The focus is on spiritual purification, not on sustenance.
It's as if the act of hunting, with its inherent aggression and pursuit of worldly game, is seen as incompatible with the state of Ihram. It's about shifting our priorities,
Right.
recognizing that Allah will provide for our needs and focusing on that inner journey.
Okay, so what happens if you accidentally break one of the haram rules? That's where the concept of expiation comes in.
Right.
Hadith 1854 describes a man who shaved his head out of necessity.
Okay.
And the Prophet offers him choices for making amends, fasting, feeding the poor. It's about acknowledging the transgression and taking steps to restore balance.
Right.
So how does this concept of expiation connect to the broader Islamic emphasis on seeking forgiveness?
It's a beautiful example of Allah's mercy and understanding. He acknowledges that we are human and prone to mistakes. But he also emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for our actions and seeking to rectify our wrongs.
Right.
Expiation is a way of demonstrating our remorse and our sincere desire to return to a state of purity.
It's a reminder that Allah's door of mercy is always open, and He's always willing to forgive those who turn to Him with sincere repentance.
Exactly. And this concept of expiation isn't limited to individual transgressions.
Okay.
It can also apply to situations where circumstances prevent us from fulfilling our obligations. Hadith 1859 tells the story of Maimun ibn Maran, who was prevented from entering Mecca and had to sacrifice his animals elsewhere. He was instructed to bring new sacrificial animals for the atonement umrah. So it's a fresh start, a renewed intention.
It highlights the importance of sincerity in our worship. Even when faced with obstacles, the focus should remain on seeking Allah's pleasure and fulfilling our obligations to the best of our ability.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that sometimes our best efforts may fall short due to circumstances beyond our control.
Right.
But what matters is our intention and our willingness to make amends.
Now let's talk about performing Hajj on behalf of others. This is where things get really heartwarming.
Okay.
Hadith 1806 tells the story of a man whose elderly father couldn't make the journey. He asks the Prophet if he can perform Hajj on his father's behalf, and the Prophet grants him permission.
Right.
It's such a beautiful act of filial piety, extending this act of worship beyond physical limitations.
Yeah.
What does this practice tell us about the interconnectedness of the Muslim community?
It speaks to the profound sense of compassion and support that exists within the Muslim community.
Yeah.
We are encouraged to care for each other, to help each other fulfill our religious obligations,
Right.
and to ensure that even those who are unable to physically perform Hajj can still benefit from its blessings.
It's a beautiful testament to the strength of our bonds and our shared responsibility towards one another.
Exactly. And this practice is not limited to family members. It can also extend to deceased individuals or those who are permanently incapacitated.
Yeah.
However, there's a crucial clarification in Hadith 1807. You can't perform Hajj for someone else unless you've already done it for yourself. It's about prioritizing your own spiritual journey before extending that service to others.
So it emphasizes the importance of individual accountability.
Yeah.
You can't guide others on a path you haven't walked yourself.
Exactly.
It's a reminder that spiritual growth is a personal journey, and fulfilling our own obligations is a prerequisite for helping others fulfill theirs.
Right.
Okay. Let's delve into some of the specific gestures and supplications during Hajj.
Yeah.
Hadith 1865 addresses the issue of raising hands while facing the Kaaba. The Prophet discourages this differentiating Islamic practice from Jewish traditions.
Okay.
Why is this distinction important?
It highlights the unique identity of Islamic rituals and their grounding in prophetic guidance. It's a reminder to be mindful of our actions and to seek authentic knowledge about the proper way to perform our acts of worship.
Right.
We should avoid blindly imitating other traditions, even if they seem similar on the surface.
So it's about preserving the integrity and authenticity of our own faith.
Exactly. And then we have this incredibly detailed account of the Prophet's supplications and actions at Safa in Hadith 1867.
Okay.
It's all about humility, focusing on that connection with God and pouring out your heart in supplication.
It's a beautiful and moving scene that teaches us how to approach Allah with sincerity and humility.
Yes. It's a reminder that Hajj is not just about outward rituals,
Yeah.
but about the state of our hearts and our connection with the divine.
Speaking of connection, let's talk about the Kaaba itself.
Okay.
It's the focal point of Hajj, this ancient structure that symbolizes the unity of all Muslims.
Right.
Hadith 1870 clarifies that part of Al-Hijr is considered part of the Kaaba, expanding the sacred space. What's the significance of Al-Hijr? Why is it considered part of the Kaaba?
Al-Hijr is a semicircular wall adjacent to the Kaaba.
Good.
It's believed to be the remnants of the original structure built by Prophet Ibrahim.
Oh, wow.
By incorporating it into the Kaaba, it expands that sacred space and acknowledges the historical continuity of this holy site.
So it's a reminder that the Kaaba has a rich and layered history, and its sanctity extends beyond its current physical form.
Precisely. And this sense of historical continuity is further emphasized in Hadith 1873,
Okay.
where the Prophet touches the black stone with a stick while riding a camel. It shows that even the Prophet had to make accommodations for physical limitations.
Yeah.
The spirit of the act is paramount, not the rigid adherence to form.
It's a message of inclusivity, reminding us that everyone should have the opportunity to participate in worship to the best of their ability.
Absolutely. And Hadith 1889 is a powerful reminder that access to the Kaaba shouldn't be restricted. The Prophet explicitly states that no one should be prevented from circumambulating or praying there, regardless of their social status, their background, or the time of day or night.
It's a testament to the universal nature of Islamic worship and the equality of all believers before Allah.
Yes, the Kaaba is a symbol of unity for all Muslims, and access to it should be unrestricted.
Right.
It's a place where social distinctions fade away and all stand equal before Allah.
Now let's turn our attention to the farewell pilgrimage.
Okay.
It was the last Hajj performed by the Prophet.
Right?
And his words and actions during this pilgrimage carry an extra layer of significance. So what makes the farewell pilgrimage so pivotal in Islamic history?
The farewell pilgrimage marked the culmination of the Prophet's mission and provided a roadmap for the Muslim community after his passing. It was a time for him to deliver his final sermons, to impart his last words of guidance, and to solidify the foundations of the faith.
It must have been an emotionally charged event both for the Prophet and his companions.
Yes, it was a time of both joy and sorrow. A celebration of the Prophet's legacy and a recognition of the impending loss that the community would soon face.
In Hadith 1917, the Prophet advises the pilgrims to preserve a quiet demeanor during the journey from Arafat,
Okay.
emphasizing the importance of inner reflection. Why this emphasis on quietude during this particular stage of Hajj?
The journey from Arafat is a time for contemplation, for reviewing one's actions and intentions, and for seeking forgiveness and guidance from Allah.
Right.
It's a time for deep introspection, a period of soul-searching as you prepare for the culmination of the pilgrimage.
It's a reminder that Hajj is not just about outward rituals, but about a profound inner transformation.
Exactly. The physical journey mirrors the spiritual journey.
Yeah.
And this moment of quiet reflection is essential for solidifying the lessons learned during the pilgrimage.
And then we have Hadith 1940, where the Prophet clarifies that the day of sacrifice is the day of greater Hajj, underscoring its central importance. Why is the day of sacrifice considered the most significant day of Hajj?
The day of sacrifice holds a profound spiritual significance.
Yeah.
It commemorates Prophet Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son out of obedience to Allah,
Right.
and it symbolizes our own surrender to God's will. It's a day for reflection, gratitude, and renewal of our commitment to faith.
It's a culmination of the rituals, a moment of intense spiritual connection, and a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice that we are all called to make.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our lives are a gift from Allah, and we should be willing to surrender everything to Him.
And finally, there's this intriguing concept of completing the cycle of time mentioned in Hadith 1942.
Okay.
The Prophet reminds us that time is cyclical, constantly renewing itself, and that this cycle reflects the divine order of creation.
Right.
So how does this concept connect to the ritual of Hajj?
Hajj itself is a cyclical event. It occurs every year, bringing together Muslims from all corners of the globe. It's a reminder that our lives are part of a larger cosmic cycle, a continuous process of creation and renewal. And just as the earth revolves around the sun and the seasons change, our lives too are marked by periods of growth, decay, and rebirth.
It's a profound thought, a reminder that our individual journeys are interwoven with the grand tapestry of time and creation.
Exactly. And the cyclical nature of time also points to the timeless nature of Allah's wisdom.
Yeah.
His laws govern the universe, and our lives are but a small part of this grand design.
Okay, let's move on to the significance of Mina and the stoning rituals.
Okay.
It's here that pilgrims gather to throw pebbles at the Jamarat, symbolically rejecting temptation and evil. Hadith 1930 shows the Prophet declaring the entire area of Mina as a permissible place for sacrifice.
Right.
highlighting the flexibility in practice.
Yeah.
Why this emphasis on flexibility, particularly in the context of a ritual like Hajj?
This flexibility underscores the practicality of Islam and its accommodation of various circumstances.
Hmm.
The Prophet understood that not everyone would be able to perform the rituals in exactly the same way, and he made allowances for different situations without compromising the core principles of the pilgrimage.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the essence of worship lies in sincerity and intention, not in rigid adherence to form.
Precisely. And this consideration for the pilgrim's welfare is further demonstrated in Hadiths 1935 and 1936.
Okay.
The Prophet instructs them to delay the stoning ritual until sunrise, prioritizing their safety and comfort during this crowded and potentially hazardous act.
He shows that the Prophet wasn't just concerned with the spiritual aspects of Hajj, but also with the physical and emotional well-being of the pilgrims.
Yes, he was a leader who cared deeply for his community, and he went to great lengths to ensure their safety and ease during this demanding journey.
But there are exceptions to this rule as well.
Right.
Hadith 1937 tells the story of Salama being sent ahead on the night before the day of sacrifice
Okay.
to throw pebbles before dawn.
Right.
She then hurries back to Mecca to perform the circumambulation. It seems like a special dispensation. Recognizing the importance of completing the ritual within a specific time frame.
Yeah.
So how do we reconcile this exception with the general instruction to delay the stoning until sunrise?
This episode highlights the Prophet's flexibility in applying rules
Okay.
and his willingness to make exceptions in certain circumstances. It also underscores the importance of seeking knowledge
Right.
and understanding the nuanced aspects of Islamic teachings.
Yeah.
In this case, Salama's situation may have required her to complete the stoning ritual earlier, perhaps due to her specific circumstances,
Right.
or perhaps to facilitate her timely return to Mecca for the circumambulation.
Okay.
The key takeaway is that Islamic law isn't always black and white.
Yeah.
There are gray areas that require careful consideration
Right.
and an understanding of the underlying principles.
It's a reminder that seeking knowledge and understanding the rationale behind rulings is crucial for navigating the complexities of our faith.
Exactly. And this flexibility is further emphasized in Hadith 1938, where Asma is reported to have thrown pebbles at the Jamrah at night,
Oh, wow.
a practice that she learned from the Prophet himself.
So it's not just about blindly following rules. It's about understanding the spirit of the law and applying it with wisdom and discernment.
Precisely. And this understanding requires knowledge,
Right.
an ongoing pursuit of Islamic teachings, and a willingness to seek guidance from those who are more knowledgeable than ourselves.
Hadith 1939 beautifully captures the atmosphere of the journey from Muzdalifa to Mina.
Okay.
The Prophet hastens with a quiet demeanor, urging the people to throw small pebbles. It creates this sense of urgency and purpose amidst the spiritual intensity of the moment.
The Prophet's actions paint a vivid picture of the emotional and spiritual climate of Hajj.
Yeah.
It's a time for both outward action and inward reflection, for striving and surrender, for urgency and serenity.
Right.
It's a delicate balance, a culmination of the entire journey.
And then we reach the culmination of Hajj, the day of sacrifice. Hadith 1940 underscores its significance.
Right.
The Prophet declares, "This is the day of greater Hajj," highlighting its central importance within the entire pilgrimage.
The Day of Sacrifice holds a profound spiritual significance.
Yeah.
It commemorates Prophet Ibrahim's willingness to sacrifice his son out of obedience to Allah.
Right.
And it symbolizes our own surrender to God's will. It's a day for reflection, gratitude, and renewal of our commitment to faith.
It's a culmination of the rituals, a moment of intense spiritual connection, and a reminder of the ultimate sacrifice that we are all called to make.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our lives are a gift from Allah, and we should be willing to surrender everything to Him.
And then there's this beautiful concept of completing the cycle of time mentioned in Hadith 1942.
Okay.
The Prophet reminds us that time itself is cyclical, constantly renewing itself, and that this cycle reflects the divine order of creation.
Right.
So how does this concept connect to the ritual of Hajj?
Hajj itself is a cyclical event. It occurs every year, bringing together Muslims from all corners of the globe. It's a reminder that our lives are part of a larger cosmic cycle, a continuous process of creation and renewal.
Right.
And just as the Earth revolves around the sun and the seasons change,
Yeah.
our lives too are marked by periods of growth, decay, and rebirth.
It's a profound thought. A reminder that our individual journeys are interwoven with the grand tapestry of time and creation.
Exactly. And this cyclical nature of time also points to the timeless nature of Allah's wisdom.
Yeah.
His laws govern the universe, and our lives are but a small part of this grand design.
Now, I love how these next few hadiths offer these little glimpses into the Prophet's character and his leadership style. In Hadith 1944, he sends a man to proclaim the essential elements of Hajj, ensuring that everyone understands the key requirements.
Okay.
And in Hadith 1945, he reassures a man who has arrived late that he has still completed his Hajj, demonstrating flexibility and compassion.
Yeah.
So it shows a leader who's concerned with both clarity and accessibility, making sure that everyone has the opportunity to fulfill their obligations.
Exactly. The Prophet was a master communicator.
Yeah.
He knew how to convey complex ideas in a clear and concise manner, and he was always mindful of the needs of his followers,
Right.
ensuring that the message reached everyone.
And his attention to detail is evident in Hadith 1946, where he assigns specific locations for the Muhajirun and Ansar to camp at Mina.
Okay.
It shows his organizational skills and his concern for maintaining order and unity among the vast crowds.
This organized approach to encampment reflects the Prophet's foresight and his understanding of the importance of logistics in managing large gatherings. It also highlights his emphasis on unity and cooperation among the diverse groups within the Muslim community.
And amidst all the seriousness of Hajj, these hadiths also offer some lighthearted moments.
Right.
Hadith 1947 and 1948 mention the Prophet addressing the people at Mina, delivering sermons clarifying the timing of the rituals, all while maintaining a lighthearted and approachable demeanor. It humanizes the Prophet and makes him relatable to the ordinary pilgrim.
These episodes remind us that faith is not about being serious all the time. It's about finding joy and connection with Allah, even amidst the challenges and demands of ritual. The Prophet's lightheartedness and approachability make him an endearing figure.
Yeah.
Someone who can inspire and guide without being intimidating or distant.
Okay, let's talk about some of the specific details of the stoning ritual at Mina.
Okay.
It's one of the most visually striking acts of Hajj. And these hadiths offer some fascinating insights into its proper performance. So what's the deeper meaning behind this act of throwing pebbles at the Jamarat?
The stoning of the Jamarat is a symbolic act that represents the rejection of temptation and evil.
Okay.
It's a reminder of our constant struggle against negative forces and our commitment to staying on the path of righteousness.
Right.
Each pebble represents a rejection of a specific temptation, a symbolic act of defiance against the whispers of Satan.
Yeah, it's a powerful visual representation of our inner struggle against our base desires.
Exactly. It's a reminder that the path to Allah is not always easy, and we need to be vigilant in resisting temptation.
In Hadith 1951, the Prophet is described as addressing the people at Mina from atop a white mule, with Ali interpreting his words.
Okay.
So what's the significance of this detail?
It highlights the importance of accessibility and inclusivity in Islamic worship.
Okay.
The Prophet's use of an interpreter ensures that his message reaches everyone, regardless of language or background.
It's a reminder that the teachings of Islam are meant for all humankind.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the Prophet's concern for clarity is evident in Hadith 1952, where he explains the rites of Hajj in detail, including the specific instructions for throwing pebbles at the Jamarat.
It shows his commitment to ensuring that the rituals are performed correctly and that the pilgrims understand the significance of their actions.
Exactly. The Prophet was meticulous in his guidance.
Right.
He wanted to ensure that the pilgrims were not just going through the motions, but that they were performing the rituals with understanding and intention.
And it's not just about the physical act of throwing pebbles. Hadiths 1962 and 1963 describe the Prophet throwing pebbles while riding a camel, demonstrating accommodation for physical limitations. So it's another example of the Prophet's compassion and his understanding of human diversity, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a reminder that the spirit of the ritual is paramount.
Right.
Not the rigid adherence to form.
And this concern for the pilgrim's well-being continues in Hadith 1970, where the Prophet gives permission to herdsmen to throw pebbles on the day of sacrifice.
Okay. Yeah, it recognizes the demands of their work and allows them to fulfill their ritual obligations without undue hardship.
But even with this flexibility, there's a clear emphasis on completing those essential elements of the ritual.
Right.
Hadith 1971 clarifies that, those herdsmen, they're still expected to throw pebbles on at least 2 of the 3 days.
Mm.
It's a balance, isn't it? Accommodation and adherence. Recognizing individual circumstances,
Right.
but still upholding those fundamental principles of the ritual.
Precisely. It's about finding that middle ground, ensuring that the spirit of the law is honored without placing unnecessary burdens on individuals.
And then there's this interesting detail in Hadith 1972. Ibn Abbas is asked about the specific number of pebbles the Prophet threw
Okay.
at the Jamarat. But he admits that he doesn't know for sure whether it was 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
What do you make of that? It's not often that we encounter this kind of uncertainty in the Hadiths.
It's a reminder that even the companions closest to the Prophet didn't have perfect knowledge of every single detail.
Yeah.
And it highlights the importance of humility in our pursuit of knowledge. We should be willing to acknowledge the limits of our understanding and to approach religious matters with an open mind.
It's a valuable lesson.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds us that certainty isn't always attainable.
Yeah,
And that's okay.
exactly. It's about recognizing that our understanding of faith is constantly evolving.
And we should be open to new interpretations and perspectives.
Now, Hadith 1973 brings a touch of humor to the intensity of the rituals.
Okay.
The Prophet jokes that after throwing pebbles at the last Jamra, everything becomes lawful again, except for relations with women.
Right.
It's a lighthearted moment that shows the Prophet's human side
Yeah.
and his ability to connect with his companions on a personal level.
It's a beautiful reminder that faith shouldn't be devoid of joy and laughter.
Right.
It's about finding a balance between seriousness and lightheartedness,
Yeah.
reverence and approachability.
Yeah.
The Prophet's humor also served as a way to ease tension and to create a sense of camaraderie among his followers.
And speaking of approachability, these hadiths also highlight the Prophet's sensitivity towards gender differences. Hadith 1979 and 1980 clarify that women are not required to shave their heads after Hajj.
Okay.
They only need to clip a small portion of their hair.
Right.
So it's a recognition that the requirements of the ritual can be adapted.
Yeah. To suit the specific needs and social norms of different genders.
Exactly. It's about finding a balance between upholding the core principles of the ritual and accommodating the diverse experiences and needs of individuals.
And this sensitivity to gender differences is a hallmark of Islamic teachings. They provide specific guidelines for both men and women.
Right.
Ensuring that everyone can participate in worship in a way that's appropriate and comfortable for them.
Absolutely.
Now let's shift gears and talk about Umrah, the lesser pilgrimage.
Okay.
It's often seen as a voluntary act of worship, but these hadiths reveal its deeper significance and its connection to this broader Islamic project of challenging established norms.
Right. Umrah is often referred to as the minor pilgrimage, but it's important to recognize that it holds its own unique spiritual weight.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity to renew our connection with Allah, to seek His forgiveness, and to reaffirm our commitment to His path.
Hadith 1982 is a fascinating example of how the Prophet used Umrah as a tool to challenge pre-Islamic customs. He specifically performs Umrah with Aisha during Dhul Hijjah to counter this prevailing belief that Umrah was prohibited during certain months.
Right.
It was a deliberate act of defiance, wasn't
Absolutely.
it? A way of asserting the authority of Islamic teachings over cultural norms.
The Prophet was challenging the status quo and establishing the independence of Islamic practices.
Right.
He was demonstrating that Islam had its own set of guidelines that were not bound by pre-Islamic traditions.
And then there are these incredible hadiths, 1983, 1984, and 1985, that elevate the status of Umrah during Ramadan to an extraordinary level.
Okay.
We're told that performing Umrah during this sacred month is equivalent to performing Hajj.
Right.
So what's the significance of this equivalence? Why is Ramadan such a spiritually potent time?
Ramadan is a month of intense spiritual purification, a time for heightened devotion and increased awareness of Allah's presence. It's a time when our good deeds are multiplied and our sins are forgiven. And performing Umrah during this sacred month amplifies its spiritual significance, creating a profound connection with Allah.
It's a reminder that certain times and places hold a unique spiritual energy that can elevate our worship and deepen our relationship with the divine.
Exactly. And these hadiths provide a powerful incentive for Muslims to strive to perform Umrah during Ramadan.
Now, these hadiths also offer some interesting details about the practical aspects of performing Umrah.
Okay.
Hadith 1986, for instance, mentions the Prophet performing two Umrahs, one in Dhul-Qa'dah and the other in Shawwal.
Right.
Does this suggest that Umrah is not restricted to a particular time of year?
Exactly. Unlike Hajj, which is performed during a specific time period,
Right.
Umrah can be performed at any time throughout the year.
Mm.
It's an act of worship that can be integrated into our lives whenever we feel the need to reconnect with Allah.
And then we have this fascinating instruction in Hadith 1990.
Okay.
The Prophet tells Abdurrahman to take his sister Aisha on the back of his camel and make her perform Umrah from At-Tanim, specifying that this is an Umrah accepted by Allah.
Right.
It's a very specific directive, isn't it? It highlights the importance of following the Prophet's guidance in every detail.
Yes, and it also emphasizes the importance of seeking authentic knowledge and understanding the proper way to perform these acts of worship.
Right.
We should strive to emulate the Prophet's example in all aspects of our lives,
Yeah.
including the performance of our religious rituals.
Hadithi 1991 offers a glimpse into the Prophet's own performance of Umrah.
Okay.
He enters Al-Jirana, prays in the mosque,
Oh,
wears ihram, rides his camel, and then returns to Al-Jirana at night,
right.
as if he had spent the night in Mecca. It's a swift and purposeful journey,
Yeah.
reflecting his focus and determination.
It's a reminder that while we should savor the experience of performing these rituals, we should also approach them with a sense of purpose and efficiency.
And then we have this intriguing detail in Hadith 1992.
Okay.
The Prophet stays in Mecca for 3 days during the Umrah for atonement. Does this suggest a specific duration for this particular type of Umrah?
It's possible that the Umrah for atonement had a specific set of requirements,
Okay.
including a designated duration. And this highlights the importance of seeking knowledge
Right.
and understanding the nuances of Islamic teachings. Different types of Umrah may have specific guidelines,
Yeah.
and it's our responsibility to learn about these distinctions and to perform the rituals accordingly.
So it's not just about going through the motions, it's about understanding the purpose and the specific requirements of each act of worship.
Exactly. Our worship should be informed by knowledge and understanding,
Right.
not just by blind imitation.
Hadith 1994 provides a clear explanation of the rulings regarding ihram during Umrah.
Okay.
The Prophet clarifies that all the prohibitions of ihram are lifted after throwing pebbles at the Jamarat,
Right.
except for relations with women.
Mm-hmm.
And if the evening comes before performing the circumambulation, then the state of ihram continues. It's a very practical and straightforward explanation that helps the pilgrims understand the boundaries and the transitions within the ritual.
Yes. The Prophet's teachings were always clear and accessible.
Right.
He wanted to ensure that his followers understood the guidelines and could perform the rituals with confidence.
And this emphasis on clarity continues in Hadith 1995. The Prophet postpones the circumambulation on the day of sacrifice until night,
Okay.
demonstrating his flexibility and his concern for the pilgrim's well-being.
Yeah.
It's another example of the Prophet adapting the ritual to accommodate the needs of his followers, isn't it?
Exactly. He was always mindful of the challenges faced by the pilgrims, especially during such a demanding journey.
Yeah.
And he was willing to make adjustments to ensure their safety and comfort without compromising the essential elements of the ritual.
And this flexibility extends beyond physical considerations.
Right.
Hadith 1999 addresses the issue of menstruation during Umrah. Umar ibn al-Khattab is asked about a woman who has already performed the obligatory circumambulation but then begins menstruating. How does Islamic law address this situation? Is the woman excused from completing the ritual?
Umar confirms that she still needs to perform the last circumambulation of the Kaaba, even though she's menstruating.
So it's a recognition that certain biological realities don't exempt women from fulfilling their religious obligations.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that women can participate fully in acts of worship,
Right.
even during times when they might feel restricted or excluded.
It's another testament to the comprehensiveness and inclusivity of Islamic teachings.
Absolutely. Islamic law is designed to address the diverse needs and experiences of all individuals,
Right.
regardless of gender or circumstance.
And amidst all the rules and regulations, these hadiths also offer these beautiful glimpses into the Prophet's personal life and his relationships. Hadith 2000 describes Aisha performing Umrah as an atonement,
Okay.
and the Prophet waiting for her at Al-Abtah till she finishes. It's a simple yet touching gesture that reveals his love and support for his wife.
It's a beautiful reminder that our spiritual journeys are often intertwined with our relationships,
Yeah.
and that we should support and encourage each other along the way.
And even after Umrah is completing, the connection with the Kaaba doesn't end.
Mm-hmm.
Hadith 2002 describes the Prophet facing the Kaaba and supplicating whenever he passed by a particular location
Okay.
on his way back from Mecca.
Right.
What does this tell us about the lasting impact of these pilgrimages?
It's a reminder that the spiritual energy of Hajj and Umrah extends beyond the rituals themselves. It's about cultivating a state of constant awareness of Allah's presence
Yeah,
and seeking his guidance and mercy in all aspects of our lives.
it's about integrating those lessons learned during these sacred journeys into our everyday lives.
Exactly. The pilgrimage is a transformative experience, and its effects should be felt long after we've returned home.
Now, these next few hadiths focus on the sanctity of the Kaaba and the rulings governing behavior within its sacred space. Hadith 2011 describes the Prophet praying near the gate of Banu Sam with people passing before him,
Right.
and there being no covering between him and the Kaaba.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of this detail? Is there a message here about simplicity and accessibility?
Absolutely. The Prophet's willingness to pray in a public space without any special arrangements highlights the simplicity and accessibility of Islamic prayer.
Right. It's a reminder that prayer is a direct connection between us and Allah,
Mm-hmm.
and it can be established anywhere at any time.
Precisely. And this emphasis on humility is further reinforced in Hadith 2014 when Aisha suggests building a shaded structure
Okay.
for the Prophet to pray in, but he declines, stating that the space should be available to whoever arrives first.
So there's no need for special privileges or elaborate arrangements in worship.
Right.
The focus is on equality and humility before Allah.
Exactly. These hadiths remind us that our status in the eyes of Allah is determined by our piety and our sincerity, not by our wealth or social standing.
And this emphasis on ethical behavior extends to all aspects of life.
Right.
Even within a sacred context like the Kaaba Hadith 2015 condemns the practice of hoarding food in the sacred territory
Okay.
to sell it at inflated prices.
Mm-hmm.
What does this tell us about the importance of social responsibility even during Hajj?
It highlights the fact that our faith should guide our actions in all spheres of life, including our economic dealings. We should not exploit others
Right.
or engage in unethical practices, even in a place as sacred as Mecca.
Yeah. It's a reminder that our actions have consequences both in this world and the next.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our goal should be to live a life that is pleasing to Allah in all its aspects.
Now, Hadith 2023 offers a fascinating glimpse into the history of the Kaaba.
Okay.
Aisha expresses her desire to pray inside the Kaaba,
Mm-hmm.
but the Prophet takes her to Al-Hijr, explaining that it was originally part of the Kaaba.
Right.
So, what's the significance of this historical detail?
It reminds us that the physical structure of the Kaaba has evolved over time, but its spiritual significance remains constant.
Okay.
The Kaaba has undergone several renovations and expansions throughout its history,
Right.
but its role as the focal point of Islamic worship has never changed.
It's a testament to the enduring power of this sacred site and its ability to connect us to our shared history and our faith.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And even though we may not have all the answers about its past, the Kaaba continues to hold a profound spiritual resonance for Muslims around the world.
And speaking of the Kaaba's spiritual resonance, Hadith 2024 describes a poignant moment after the Prophet enters the Kaaba.
Okay.
He expresses sadness, fearing that he might have inadvertently placed a burden on his community.
Oh, wow.
What does this reveal about the Prophet's character?
It shows his humility and his deep concern for the well-being of his followers. Even though he was the messenger of Allah, he was still a human being
Right.
with emotions and anxieties. And he was always mindful of the impact of his actions on those around him.
It's a beautiful example of his compassion and his leadership style.
Yes, he led with humility and empathy, always prioritizing the needs of his community.
And this concern for the practicalities of worship is evident in Hadith 2025.
Okay.
The Prophet reminds Uthman ibn Talha to cover the horns of a sacrificial lamb within the Kaaba.
Right.
What's the reasoning behind this instruction?
It's about ensuring that nothing distracts the worshipers from their prayers.
Okay.
The Kaaba is a place for focused and undistracted worship.
Right.
And even seemingly minor details can impact the quality of our connection with Allah.
It's a reminder to be mindful of our surroundings and to eliminate any potential distractions that might hinder our spiritual focus.
Exactly. Our goal should be to create an environment that facilitates deep and meaningful connection with the divine.
Now let's move beyond the confines of Mecca and Medina.
Yeah.
And explore the rulings governing behavior in other sacred territories. Why is it important to have specific guidelines for behavior in these areas.
These rulings demonstrate that the concept of sacred space extends beyond the boundaries of specific cities.
Well, it's not just about protecting physical structures.
Right.
It's about recognizing the sanctity of certain areas and behaving accordingly.
Exactly. And these rulings also highlight the importance of respecting the environment and preserving natural resources.
Right. Hadith 2027, for instance, designates the game and thorny trees of Hajj as unlawful,
Okay.
establishing a protected area.
Yeah.
So what's the significance of this designation?
It's about preserving biodiversity and protecting the delicate balance of the ecosystem.
It shows that Islamic teachings encompass not just personal piety, but also our responsibility towards the environment.
Yes, environmental stewardship is an integral part of our faith.
Yeah.
And these rulings remind us that we are entrusted with the care of the natural world.
Now let's turn our attention to Medina, the city of the Prophet.
Okay.
It holds a special place in the hearts of Muslims worldwide.
Yeah.
And these hadiths outline the specific rulings that govern behavior within its boundaries. What makes Medina such a sacred city?
Medina was the sanctuary where the Prophet established the first Muslim community.
Okay.
It was a place of refuge and growth, and its significance stems from its historical role in the development of Islam.
It's a city that's steeped in history, and its association with the Prophet makes it a destination for millions of pilgrims every year.
Exactly. And these hadiths demonstrate the importance of respecting the sanctity of Medina and behaving in a manner that is befitting of its sacred status.
Hadith 2030, for instance, lays out a comprehensive set of guidelines for preserving the environment
Okay.
and fostering communal responsibility within Medina.
Yeah.
What are some of the key elements of these guidelines?
The hadith prohibits cutting fresh grass, driving away game, and cutting trees. It encourages people to pick up lost items and to publicly announce them. These guidelines highlight the interconnectedness of our faith and our actions.
Yeah.
They emphasize that our piety should extend beyond our personal lives to encompass our interactions with the environment and the community.
So it's about creating a harmonious and ethical society.
Exactly. And these guidelines are not just suggestions.
Right.
They are binding rulings that are meant to be upheld.
Okay.
Hadith 2032 describes Sa'd ibn Abu Waqqas confiscating the belongings of a man who was hunting within the sacred territory of Medina.
So it shows that these rulings are taken seriously and that there are consequences for violating them.
Yes, it's about protecting the sanctity of Medina and ensuring that its sacred status is respected.
But as we've seen before, there's always a balance to be struck between preservation and practicality.
Right.
Hadith 2034 shows the Prophet permitting the gentle beating of leaves to provide fodder for camels.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that Islamic teachings are not meant to be burdensome or inflexible.
Exactly. They are designed to guide us towards a life of balance, recognizing our needs and limitations, while also upholding our responsibilities towards the environment and the community.
And these final hadiths, 2036 and 2037, offer a beautiful glimpse into the Prophet's enduring presence
Yeah.
and the importance of invoking blessings upon him. Why is it important to invoke blessings upon the Prophet even after his passing?
It's a way of expressing our love and respect for him and of acknowledging his pivotal role in bringing Islam to the world.
It's a way of connecting to his legacy and seeking his intercession on our behalf.
Exactly. And these hadith remind us that our connection with the Prophet transcends physical boundaries.
In Hadith 2036, the Prophet reassured his followers that he can still hear their greetings
Right.
and responds to them even from the afterlife.
It's a comforting thought.
Yeah.
It reminds us that our bond with the Prophet continues even after his physical departure.
And it highlights the profound spiritual connection that exists between the Prophet and his followers.
Right.
And in Hadith 2037, the Prophet discourages people from turning his grave into a place of festivity, but encourages them to invoke blessings upon him, assuring them that their blessings reach him wherever they may be.
Okay.
So what's the significance of this distinction?
It's about maintaining a balance between reverence and avoiding practices that might border on idolatry.
Okay.
We should honor the Prophet and his legacy,
Yeah.
but our focus should always be on our relationship with Allah.
It's about recognizing that the Prophet was a human being chosen by Allah to deliver his message. And our ultimate devotion should be directed toward Allah alone.
Exactly. And these hadiths provide clear guidance on how to honor the Prophet in a manner that is pleasing to Allah.
And finally, we have Hadith 2040, which advises pilgrims returning to Medina not to rush past a certain location, al-Mu'adas,
Okay.
but to stop and pray there as much as they wish, following the example of the Prophet. What's the message behind this instruction?
It's about recognizing the sacredness of Medina and taking the time to connect with its spiritual energy.
Yeah, it's a reminder that the journey itself is just as important as the destination.
Exactly. And every step we take towards a sacred place is an opportunity for reflection and prayer.
It's about savoring the journey and recognizing that every moment spent in the presence of the sacred is a blessing.
Precisely. And this hadith also emphasizes the importance of emulating the Prophet's example in all aspects of our lives.
Yeah.
By following in his footsteps, we can connect to his legacy and draw inspiration from his spiritual journey.
Wow, what an incredible journey this has been.
Mm-hmm.
We've delved into the intricacies of Hajj, explored its historical and spiritual significance,
Yeah.
and uncovered those deeper layers of meaning within these hadiths.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we've barely scratched the surface,
Right.
but I've learned so much from this exploration.
It's been a very rich discussion.
As we wrap up this deep dive, what are some of the key takeaways that stand out to you?
For me, it's the emphasis on balance that shines through these hadiths.
Yeah.
We see this balance in the way the Prophet navigated the complexities of the rituals, accommodating individual circumstances while upholding the core principles of Hajj. We see it in the way he integrated his spiritual life with his worldly affairs, demonstrating that faith should permeate all aspects of our existence.
Yeah.
And we see it in the way he balanced his leadership role with his humility and compassion,
Right.
always prioritizing the needs of his community.
I completely agree. It's about finding that sweet spot, that middle ground, where our spiritual aspirations are aligned with our human limitations.
Right.
And it's about approaching our faith with wisdom and understanding,
Yeah.
not with rigidity or dogma.
Exactly. And another takeaway that resonates deeply with me is the Prophet's unwavering commitment to unity and inclusivity.
Yeah.
Throughout these hadiths, we see him breaking down barriers, transcending social and cultural differences, and emphasizing the equality of all believers before Allah.
Yes. It's a powerful reminder that Islam is a faith for all humanity, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, or social status.
Right.
We are all united by our shared belief in the one God and our commitment to his path.
Absolutely. And as we conclude this deep dive, I'd like to leave our listener with a final thought.
Okay.
We've talked extensively about the rituals of Hajj,
Right.
but let's take a moment to reflect on the deeper symbolism of the Kaaba itself. It's a simple, cube-shaped structure devoid of any elaborate ornamentation.
Yeah.
Yet it serves as the focal point for millions of Muslims worldwide.
It's a powerful symbol of unity, isn't it?
Yeah,
It represents the singularity of our purpose, our shared belief in the one God.
exactly. The Kaaba transcends cultural and linguistic barriers.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that we are all part of one global community, united by our faith and our devotion to Allah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the rites of Hajj. It's been an enlightening and inspiring journey.
It's been a pleasure to share this exploration with you and our listener.
We encourage you, our listener, to continue pondering these hadiths, to delve deeper into the traditions of Hajj, and to reflect on those timeless messages they hold for us today. May Allah grant us all the opportunity to experience this transformative journey
Inshallah.
and to return home with hearts filled with humility, gratitude, and a renewed commitment to his path. Until next time, may Allah guide us all on the straight path.